Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about Minnesota, that state that had a very violent, very terrible attack happen and sparked this controversy that's going on across the country still. Yes, in Minneapolis there was that terrible arrest that went wrong and resulted in someone dying, sparking this race baiting in the media. Celebrities latched onto the story. Everyone's been talking about it, and it's still causing chaos to this day. People are now tearing down statues. Companies have to change their names. It's like a big, big race war. And it all came out of Minnesota, and Minneapolis has suffered greatly because of this. Minneapolis has had many places torn down. Things have been set on fire. People are destroying stuff there. Like, you can't even go downtown very much anymore without seeing like graffiti, debris, bad stuff in the streets. Like, it's a mess. And that's why now the governor is apparently trying to save and rebuild. He wants to fix some things. He wants to set up a relief fund and do stuff like that. But ironically enough, and what's funny is now they want help from Trump and the federal government. The federal government is supposed to bail them out now, apparently, but I just don't think it's fair. And I don't understand why they would do that after they kind of caused all this. They let all this rioting happen. Obviously, the police weren't locking things down right away. They kind of just let the rioters take over the city, destroy stuff. They burnt things down. And the cop presence came much later on. They basically let it go for like a week. And then they finally started to come in and, at the same time, though, the governor and the mayor and all these leaders, this is all liberal run area. This is liberals all through and through, like almost all positions of power in this state are run by leftists. And they were like supporting the rioters. They were supporting these terrorists, these people tearing down the cities, tearing down buildings, and then now they want a bailout, which is just really funny. And that's why it's even more funny to realize that Trump turned them down. As you can see by this article, this story is getting around. It says Trump denies Minnesota governor's request for $500 million to repair damage from riots. And I think that's a good move. I think that's deserved. I mean, why should the federal government, why should our tax dollars from other states go into this one state that caused all these problems? I mean, you can't just blame it on the politicians, but they certainly made it worse. Like, they certainly didn't help. They didn't send in the cops in time. They parroted these bad talking points. Like, they tried to make it all racist. They said this was racist, this was racist. And, they went after the cops too. They're like defunding the police. The government of Minneapolis has like removed their police forces and are trying to replace them and all this crazy stuff. So it's kind of like one of those situations where you're like, you get what you get, this is what you deserve. I'm not trying to hate on them. Like, there's fine people in this state. Like, I don't hate Minneapolis or Minnesota or anyone there. Like, I definitely dislike what these politicians have done with the place. I definitely disagree with the voters there, with them choosing these Democrats despite them being terrible, but despite them failing their area. So that's stuff we could disagree on. And we should see Minneapolis and Minnesota return to good graces. Like, I hope they do well and can rebuild, but for them to ask us for money to do it after they caused all this, it's like, no, dude, no. You have to deal with your own problem. We're not bailing you out. President Trump has denied a request from Minnesota's governor for money to rebuild parts of Minneapolis that were destroyed during the riots following the death of George Floyd. The governor is disappointed that the federal government declined his request for financial support, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's office said in a statement. As we navigate one of the most difficult periods in our state's history, we look for support from our federal government to help us through. Walz, a Democrat, asked that Trump declare Minnesota a major disaster zone in a request the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, on July 2nd, after more than 1,500 buildings were damaged by looting and rioting in the wake of Floyd's death, totaling over $500 million in damages. At least one Republican in the state had lobbied the Trump administration in opposition to the request, arguing that the state's response to the unrest should be thoroughly reviewed. Yeah, I think if they were to get any funding, we would have to revamp that whole state and talk about how they messed this up so bad. And the other thing I don't like about this article here, they mentioned George Floyd a couple times. That's the person that got killed. It was a terrible death. Obviously, no one wants that to happen to anyone, but it wasn't racism involved. Like, it wasn't really proven racism at all. It was just different races happened to be in this altercation. And then everyone else race baited it. The news, these local politicians, everyone started turning it into this race war. And that's the real problem here. They try to blame the death of Floyd for what happened. And they try to act like, oh, if the cops hadn't killed this guy, none of this would have happened. And yeah, that's partially true, but the people that race baited it are really the ones to blame because if they hadn't race baited so much, hadn't made this national news, hadn't like dramatized everything and tried to make it worse, like that's the real issue. Like otherwise, if that hadn't happened, this death might have just been a local story in Minneapolis. I mean, that's the way it would be normally if someone getting arrested, if a criminal, a possible lawbreaker, someone like Floyd who had broken a lot of laws and committed crimes before, like if that happened in any other situation in another city or state, like it wouldn't have even made the national news. Like it would have been a typical statistic and it would have been tragic still. Like we're not saying it's not important and we can't do better, but the point is it's not like it should have been spread across the country and now across the world. I mean, people in London are freaking protesting this stuff. It's insane. So the fact that it's traveling so far is really to be blamed on the liberal media and the celebrities and these BLM people, the people race baiting it and stuff. And that's why it got so bad in all of Minnesota too. That was the epicenter of this recent wave. And it was also, you got to also recognize that it's election season. Everything that happens in an election year is related to the election. So a lot of this has to do with Democrats. They're trying to shake up the country. They're trying to get us scared. They're trying to get people worried and thinking everyone's racist. They're trying to attack cops and law enforcement who tend to lean to conservative candidates. Like there's a very, very sinister kind of tone to this. It's anti-white too, like assuming racism from a white person is very offensive and very much not something you do to other races. But that's where the world we're living in. They're trying to make this play for November. November is the election. It's only a few months from now. So that's definitely part of it and part of the reason this state has to suffer. If the federal government is expected to assist in the cleanup of these unfortunate weeks, it is an obligation to every American prior to the release of funding to fully understand the events which allowed for this level of destruction to occur and ensure it never happens again, Representative Tom Emmer wrote to the Trump administration in a letter. Another congressman, Representative Jeff Duncan of South Carolina, praised the Trump administration's decision to reject Minnesota's request, placing blame on the local officials who told the police to stand down during the rioting. Exactly. That's exactly what I was talking about in the beginning. They told the cops not to do anything. They made this thing worse. And now they want us to pay for it, like an outside source to pay for it. We were the ones telling you not to do this. We were the ones telling you to lock it down. I mean, they could have called Trump back then too. They could have called on the federal government and had, federal police, FBI, troops or something like that come in and stop this crime too. But they didn't do that. But now they have a handout. Now they want the money. They just want the bill, us to pay the bill. And it's like, no, we're not paying for your damages. Like you caused this, you got to pay for it yourself. Great news. Donald Trump has denied Minnesota's disaster request to repair $500 million in damage from the riots, Duncan tweeted. Governors and mayors who order police to stand down and watch their cities burn shouldn't get a penny in taxpayer aid. This is from Representative Jeff Duncan, again, making great points, spitting straight facts. Conservative radio host Mark Levin echoed the sentiment expressed by the two Republicans, telling Minnesota politicians to pay for your own man-made hell. Great decision. The president offered the National Guard, but the pathetic governor waited and waited. And now the Minneapolis City Council votes to abolish its police. Pay for your own man-made hell. So much for utopia. Yeah, these are more great points, stuff we talked about before too. Like we are saying, they could have called in the National Guard. They could have called in the federal government in the beginning to stop it before all this damage happened. But they let it happen. They wanted to make a message and get this point out there. They wanted to say everyone's racist and go after the cops. And now they have to pay for it, but they want help. Now, of course, they want help. They want free stuff, which is not surprising. I mean, we know that the liberals always think that everything's free. They shouldn't have to pay for anything. But this is just another story. This is just a one that's just, it's really bold. It's really showing how far they've gone. Like they're obviously, they're obviously shameless. It's just really, really bad form. It's like they don't understand that they don't deserve this. They think they just deserve handouts because I don't know, it's entitlement. It's these people, they don't understand how to work for things, how to pay for your crimes, like they don't want people to go to jail. They don't want people to have to pay for anything, like have to work. They want just handout, and they want to be able to act crazy and then get paid for a while afterwards. They want to get helped and bailed out afterwards. And that's not the case. That's not what's going to happen. Not with Trump, not with this current state of America, but that could change very soon. Like, as we said, this is an election year. It's definitely related to that. So I think them asking for the money afterwards is another play. They're trying to act like Trump doesn't care. Trump is leaving Minnesota behind. But I think most rational people will see what's going on. They'll see the message here, and it's clear. It's that, you get what you paid for, you get what you get here. These people elected these officials. They went along with this rioting and protesting. They tore down their own city. And now they're going to have to pay for it, whether they pay the bill to fix it up or they're just going to have to sit in this city and live in a place that's been destroyed. Like, one way or the other, they're going to have to kind of deal with this situation. And I think it sucks. Like I said, like, I have nothing personally against Minneapolis or Minnesota. Like, they've made some bad choices politically, but there's definitely good people there. Surely, I know that's true. But yeah, this is just, they need to start voting in the right people. They need to realize how bad things have gotten. Like, quit the denialism. Don't pretend nothing's going on. And also just get real, like, don't try to cave in like this governor. We've seen videos of the governor and the mayor of Minneapolis. Like, they've all had these bad moments. They've caved to the protesters and let them riot and held back the police. And now they're defunding the police. And that's just not the way to run your state. Like, if you want your state to fail and get destroyed, that's what you're getting. But we're not going to pay to fix it. Like, these other states, we didn't do anything. They're trying to get money from all of our taxes, and it's not going to happen, at least not under Trump. But if someone else wins in November, if Biden's in presidency, I mean, he would have given this money away. We would be in a lot of trouble. Believe me, we're going to be in a lot of trouble unless Trump wins again. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also, hit that like button to get this shared. Hit the bell for notifications. And until next time, have a great day.